Hello, everybody. I'm Annie Brock, President and CEO of the Leader Transition Institute. Thank you for joining us here today on April 26th, 2022, for the Leader Transition Institute monthly training and coaching session. We do these sessions to stay connected with the alumni of our veteran transition program, Changing Focus, Moving from We to Me, and to serve the greater community. We are fortunate today to have Matt Sivacek, our LTI Vice President for Operations, and Bryan Fulkerson, the Managing Director for the Arbinger Institute, to talk about having an outward mindset. I'm going to go into the background, manage the tech. Matt and Bryan, it's all yours.
All right, Bryan, go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, Annie. And it's good to see you and Matt. Like Annie said, I'm Bryan Fulkerson and the Managing Director of Arbinger's federal agency practice. And that's a long way of just saying we handle all the work within the federal agencies in the federal government. So I've been with Arbinger for over 5 years now. And before that, I was actually a client of Arbinger. So I was blessed to be part of an organization that allowed us to kind of run the Arbinger experiment and to just see what happens, right? We had tried a bunch of other leadership programs and to varying degrees of success, but I can tell you from my experience rolling out Arbinger's kind of the principles and the tools, it was a game changer for us. And I think even more importantly for me, it was life changing on the personal side as well. So it's a transformative journey, and it's one that I'm so blessed to be on. And hopefully, after our kind of discussion today, where we're going to orient you to the outward mindset, you'll start to see why that is. So let me start off by saying this body of work, Arbinger's body of work, is different. People tend to have a very visceral experience. It's deeply rooted in philosophy and gets to the heart of conflict. And for some folks, it is difficult to see where we are coming from when we're talking about conflict and how we are actually a part of it. So I thought I'd take you down that path for the first couple of minutes here, walk you through self-deception, and then here in a little bit I'll share a slide deck. So at the 60,000 foot level, Arbinger's we're an international consulting firm that helps transform cultures by helping organizations, teams, leaders, individuals solve the challenges that have been created by self-deception. Okay, so self-deception. We're gonna be tackling this at a couple different levels here, but it's one of the single most established human phenomena in history. But by its very nature, it's often overlooked. So what is it? It is simply believing the lies that we tell ourselves. It's hard to wrap our heads around that. It is simply believing the lies that we tell ourselves. So we'll kind of dive into that. But another way of talking about self-deception, and maybe a little easier way, it is the problem of not knowing and resisting the possibility that one has a problem. Now, it might seem to some that this is some philosophical, theoretical problem, but rest assured, it is very practical, and it shows up in our day-to-day lives. So this issue of not knowing and resisting the possibility that one has a problem, it is at the heart of most of our challenges at work, and it's very much part of the seemingly most unsolvable people problems that we face. So in a very real way, when I am self-deceived, I create a new need in my life that frankly becomes all consuming, because I show up at work or I show up at home. And for a lot of us right now, that's the same place. And I spend my precious time, energy, focus, effort, something that I think we can all agree that we don't have enough of, trying to convince everyone around me and myself that I'm not a problem, nor do I create problems for others. So when something at work fails, or something at home's not going well, or a task is late, or it didn't get completed, my team is not getting along with another team, I'm not getting along with a neighbor, whatever that might be. Maybe it's a new office initiative that not going well, but hey, nobody consulted me on it. Well, it gives me the perfect justification to let myself off the hook. And I no longer have to hold myself accountable to my work, nor the impact that my work has on others. And at a very practical, real level, what manifests, the outcomes that surface, is the lack of accountability. We begin to have a culture of blame. Collaboration starts to tank. Team morale, engagement goes down. But unfortunately, what self-deception has protected us with is, in the midst of all of this going on, what remains true, at least in my head, is that I'm not at fault. And when we all show up to work or at home feeling like it is not our fault, then it sabotages both our individual and our organizational results. So as we start to think through self-deception, as we start to peel back the onions and the layers of this, we'll start to understand that it's a bit of a paradox. Because if I'm blind through the problems that I create, then how do I fix them? If I'm blind to them, I can't see them, how am I supposed to fix them? Which highlights why self-deception is so dangerous. Because again, if I'm blind to these problems and I don't know that I'm creating them, then I'm going to continue to create more and more of these problems. And again, never act to fix them.
Can I ask a question, Bryan?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. So what was hitting me while you were talking about the self-deception, it's less of a question, more of a statement, I guess, but is I've had to survive my whole life. And one part of me surviving is me telling myself I'm doing the right things. And to sit there and all of a sudden begin to question whether I'm doing the right things and whether the people that appear to be a problem in my life are or may not actually be my biggest problem. That's kind of that I can understand why people would be visceral, because that's scary, man. That's you're talking about changing my whole worldview. So yeah, I can see why people would be scared. And then of course, me being on the military side, and even most humans are this way. When we get scared, we get angry, right? And then we become defensive because I believe I'm an ethical, good human being. So why would I be lying to myself and honestly everybody else by telling them that they're the problem? That I think you used the word paradox. Anyway, I'll let you get back to it. I just struck me.
Look, man, I think you're bringing up a great point here. It's we have these. We all grow up and we start to have these images of ourselves that I'm a nice guy, so I would never not share information with somebody, or I'm really helpful, so of course I'm always going to share information. But when I betray that sense to share information with Matt Sivacek, I have to justify why I did that because I'm a helpful person. And I start to maybe objectify you in ways, Matt, it's part of my narrative. You have no idea that this is going on, right? And those
I didn't.
I'm
scared right now.
What's that?
I said I didn't know this was going on with you, Bryan. I'm kind of scared right now, but continue.
So
sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, jump in. Well, look, Matt's bringing up a good question here. So how can we help people see something that they are unwilling to see, right? That's the ultimate central challenge that our work is designed to help with, and not only help with, but help overcome at the same time. And that's what makes it different. So instead of addressing just accountability, just collaboration, just silos, just blame, like our core belief is that all of this, there's something deeper going on, and it's at that self-deception level, right? So all of this to say, within our work at Arbinger, we reveal two distinct mindsets, two ways of working, two versions of myself in which we operate. We have an inward mindset and an outward mindset. And I thought that's what we could explore for the rest of the time here. So Annie, if you don't mind, can you share that that slide deck? There it is. Let me ensure we got yeah, here we go. So so these are our main trade books. You know, their Leadership and Self-Deception came out in 2001, and Anatomy of Peace, the 4th edition of Anatomy of Peace, we made some recent changes, came out in February, and the Outward Mindset came out in 2016, which has gone through a couple editions as well. The editions are just to update the content. Everything that I'm going to be speaking about today is found in these books here. So how do we define mindset and why mindset matters? What I'm thinking about here, and this is clearly my confirmation bias, or maybe it's not, but like, because I'm in this space of mindset, I see mindset everywhere. I hear about a champion's mindset, winner's mindset, growth fix mindset, Carol Dweck's work. Then we have Arbinger's work. There's lots of mindset. And I thought what I would do is just kind of set this up in a way that helps us all understand mindset at a deeper level. And we'll go into how Arbinger defines mindset. So when we look at it through this mindset model, let's say this current results, that target in the middle, that represents our current level of results, right? As an organization. Or you can think about your home life, whatever perspective you want to look at this through, that's our current results. Our current results are being driven by our behaviors, right? The results have been produced by our collective behaviors as an organization. So what are we talking about behaviors? Because I want to get really clear here. Behaviors are our actions, the things that we do, the meetings we attend, the things we say, are actual activities that drive the results. I don't think any of us can really disagree or argue too much with, hey, those are what's driving the results of the organization. But it begs the question, what is driving behaviors? What is influencing our behaviors? And at that level, we talk about it at the mindset level. Okay. These behaviors are being driven by our individual and collective mindset. It's how we see people. It's how we see the challenges, choices, opportunities, and so on. So let's dive in. If we take that mindset level and break that in half, that's where we're going to go next. So we're going to talk about the 2 ways of working, our 2 mindsets. We have one mindset that inspires accountability and collaboration and engagement. And the byproduct of these is trust and results, right? Then we have another way of working that frankly, it shuts them down and it invites resistance. It invites resistance in others. So to take this a level deeper, we have at Arbinger, and let's just go through these definitions here, an inward mindset. When I am inward, simply put, others don't matter like I matter. They're not as legitimate as me. So while every person on this call here, on this webinar, they have needs. You all have needs, objectives, challenges, hopes, dreams, fears, things that are keeping you up at night, things that are inspiring you, whatever that is. But when I'm inward, those don't matter to me, right? What I become focused on are my objectives, are my behaviors. I become self-focused. It's all about me, what I'm trying to get done in that moment or at work that day, right? And so when we're from an inward mindset, others become objects to us. And that might seem a little like, oh, I would never objectify someone. Well, none of us really do it on purpose. I don't wake up in the morning, put my feet on the ground and be like, all right, I'm going to objectify Matt Sivacek today. He's going to be my target. That's not typically how it happens. But there are 3 objects, kind of subcategories that we kind of use as objects. And those are the vehicles that I use, right? These are the people that maybe I'm super nice to that day because I need something from them, right? These are the people we may manipulate because I need to look good in a certain way. And so these are the folks that we use. Then we have the obstacles that I blame. So if I can't use you and things are not going well, things are failing, I need someone to blame, right? So we see obstacles out there, obstacles that I blame. So if I can't use you, then maybe I need to blame you. And if I can't use you and I can't blame you, well, then you're no different than the chair that's sitting in the corner right now. You're an irrelevancy that I ignore. I ignore you until I can use you or until I can blame you. So conversely, let's take a look at an outward mindset. So the outward version of myself, others matter like I matter. Others are people that have needs, objectives, challenges, hopes and dreams and fears, and they matter to me. So when I do my work in a way that takes others into account, right? My objectives and the things that I'm showing up to do is taking others into account. I'm understanding the impact that my work has on others. And now, Matt, let's just take a pause here and kind of address one thing. Are we saying with an outward mindset that, like, hey, all I have to do is focus on everyone else and I don't have anything to do? Is that what we're saying with an outward mindset?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. That's not what I hear. What I hear is that they matter like I matter, no more and no less, which is almost a knife's edge of trying to balance, because I know for me, I tend to judge everybody as to whether they're more important or less important, more can affect me more and affect me less. How many people are just neutral, if you will, which is almost what outward mindset is when it comes to nobody matters more or less than I do. Sure. And that starts, I think it starts out really hard. I was going to ask you a question about this too. So does that mean that police officer that's pulled me over in my car, I mean, am I supposed to be outward towards him? Well, I mean, look, does he matter like I matter? Because it seems like he matters more because he's giving me a ticket and I can't tell him I'm not taking a ticket.
Sure. Look, I think there's two ways that we can go into receiving a ticket, right? I can receive a ticket with an inward mindset where the police officer doesn't matter. Or I can, oh, that's cool. Or from an outward place where the police officer does matter, right? And has a job, and I can understand the needs, objectives, and challenges of the police officer as they're approaching the vehicle, or the fears that they may have, or whatever is going on in their head. But with every situation I can address it with an inward mindset or an outward mindset.
So what I hear you saying then is roles and responsibilities actually have nothing to do with being outward or inward. That's just one way that I start to stratify people that can actually lead me inward or outward. But another example would be the president of the United States, right? No matter who he is, I think the people would generally agree he matters more in a role than I do, but not as a human. We're talking about on the human interaction level.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. And look, a lot of this is around, it's providing us the language that we need to help kind of translate our lives, our lived experiences. This is a fantastic way. Before anybody joined this call, we are either operating from a place where others matter like I matter, or they don't matter like I. Way before we join this and way after, this just gives us the language that we need to help translate our lives in a way that we can possibly become more effective. This is not about being right, wrong, good, bad. It's just a way to help us recenter ourselves around a challenging situation, and a situation that's maybe making us uncomfortable. But like, if we can revert back to this and like, how am I seeing others? How is my impact on others? Which then kind of gets to the results. If I go back to here, from an outward mindset, LTI is you have a role at LTI. Your job is to get something done, getting a result done, but you want to do it in a way that makes everyone else successful. You can also do it in a way where you don't have any idea of what's going on around you and the impact that you're having. Same at Arbinger, right? I am charged with a role at Arbinger, and I can either do it in a way where I understand my impact on others, or I can do it in a way where it's like, it doesn't matter what's happening out there. I'm just getting my job done, and I don't care if I leave at the end of the day and leave 30 problems for the next person. Which kind of then gets into results. So if I could just, let me advance, let's see, get back to my slide.
Well, you're advancing. I just see a question from Heidi at the bottom.
Yeah.
Can you see that, Bryan, or you want me to read it to you?
Yeah. Do you think it is harder to be outward based on your role or responsibility, or is that a way you look at it if you have a closed mindset? Heidi, I wish we could take you off mute, and I'd love to hear your thoughts around that. But look, from my experience, inward mindset makes things infinitely harder. It might feel good to feel justified in a situation of like, not my fault. they're just whatever, terrible at their job or whatever that looks like. From an outward place, I think it's easier in the long run to be outward, to understand the impact. And we certainly, when we look at it from results perspective, and that's kind of where I'm going here, Heidi and Matt, when I'm inward, my focus is on my results. My focus is on how everyone around me is impacting me and my ability to get my job done. Versus an outward mindset, my focus is on our results, right? And how I am impacting others and their ability to get their job done. So and maybe Heidi, I even think about it in terms of like, is it easier or harder? I think about it in terms of effectiveness. Am I more effective in one way or the other? Matt, what would you think?
Well, it's two things were hitting me. I'll tell you the first one that hit me after this one, because this one's relevant to the question at hand, which is I think the roles create the pressure that creates the invitation to be inward or outward. So yes, let's say I'm the CEO of a company and I've got to do all this stuff. And that means I've got all this pressure on me and I need the stuff done certain ways. And so now I have to judge people doing the stuff. And the minute I have to judge quality, the minute I have pressure and time pushing me to accomplish things, the invitation to go to my core set or to be inward, because my entire life I've been indoctrinated into a system of inwardness so that I could live, at least that's what I thought. So that's what I would think is the more pressure, the more likely I will revert to my core self, which has been inward most of my life, as I've figured out and find out every day. Then the other thing I just wanted to offer is I have this visual when you're talking about being inward of 3 people in a rowboat and they all have blinders on and 2 of them are rowing and one of them's yelling because they're the call out person. One's rowing one direction, one's rowing the other direction, and the boat's spinning in circles and the person calling out feels it's spinning and is yelling to stop spinning. And yet all of them are doing their job. But they're all negatively impacting each other because nobody's helping, even though they're all doing their job and getting their results because they're rowing hard and calling hard. Anyway, so that's what I pictured inward mindset.
Yeah, for sure. And so taking that and what does it look like with outward mindset? Everyone is rowing in the same direction at the same time, at the same cadence, going in the same direction. That's how I see it, Matt. Yeah.
Yep.
So if I take if I take the outward and inward mindset, we put it here, let's just talk about outcomes for a couple minutes. And the question that tends to come up in an outward mind, the outward version of myself is this question of how am I making things harder for others? When there's a challenging situation that I'm dealing with, how am I making things harder? Versus the inward version of me, my focus again is how are others making it harder for me? How are others making it harder for me? So some of the outcomes, we won't explore these, in great detail, but awareness, right? If I'm thinking, how am I making things harder for others? Well, that's a genuine curiosity that I'm going for, right? So I'm going to start learning and understanding how I am making things harder. How am I impacting others? Which increases my level of self-awareness. Awareness, right, goes up. So an inward mindset, when I'm only focused on how others are making it harder for me, the blinders go up. It doesn't matter what they're up against. I don't even consider that. All I'm focused on is how they are impacting me. Collaboration goes up in the same sense because now I'm starting to collaborate. I'm starting to go out there and answer and get answers to some of these questions. Accountability goes up. Innovation goes up. Now that we're starting to really understand problems, we can solve problems through innovation, and engagement goes up. We all love being around people who are curious about us and who are curious about how they are making our lives harder. So the reverse is true as well. People are curious about how we, having those conversations around impact. Engagement tends to go up. So now if I take these 2 outcomes and I throw them up on this continuum, and I'd invite anyone here to go to our website at arbinger.com. There's a resources tab, and under the resources tab, there's assessments. And if you scroll down a little bit, it's something called the mindset assessment. And that's what we're going to be talking about here. If you want to take that, they will email you, the tool will email you your results. But we're going to explore that right here. So if we take these two outcomes, we place them on this continuum, what we offer is that throughout all the data points that we have collected through the website, through conferences that we attend, and people go in, through organizations taking these assessments to see where they're at, we have plotted where people see their organization on this continuum. So on the assessment, they take a question, 10 questions that rate their organization, and then they take 10 questions that rate their individual mindset. Okay, so let's just think about your organization. Where would you rate your organization on this continuum? 0 being closer to the inward side, 10 being closer to the outward side. I'll just give you a couple seconds. Just think about that. Where would you plot this on your organization on this continuum?
And as they're plotting that, Trish made a comment that I thought was an interesting way of looking at this. And she just said, I think prioritizing or categorizing people has been a coping mechanism to help us figure out how to address a situation.
Yeah.
Does that sounds about right to me?
Look, I'm sometimes an unapologetic control freak. I have to label people so that I can control the situation. It's a huge weakness of mine. Like being able to see and a major red flag for me that, hey, I'm probably a little more inward here than I need to be in order to effectively address this situation. The second I start labeling, or my scripts or my narrative or my biases start getting in the way, I start to categorize people, and I ultimately become, in my experience, more ineffective. Is that how you see it, Matt?
Well, yeah, it just kind of hit me again that let's use the example of somebody who has poor work performance, right? So there's a big difference between saying Bryan is a poor worker and saying Bryan is having a performance issue right now.
Yeah. Very
different, right? One attacks the character, which is attacking the humanity, which is where we're supposed to be equal, right? No matter no more or no less. The other one is looking truly at the performance, and one, you can't fix somebody's character. There's no way. There's nothing I can do, right? That's a long-term adventure. But if I want to help somebody's performance in this situation on this task, because I also guarantee that Bryan, as my example, is not a poor performer on all tasks.
Sure.
But if I label him as a poor performer, he is now, and I was really good. I could do that in 30 seconds of meeting somebody. You were dead to me or alive to me. You were a vehicle or an obstacle.
Yeah. You can either see Bryan, or you can, Bryan is the problem, or Bryan has a problem, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's where
almost no one is ever truly the problem. They usually just have an issue or a challenge that I am probably feeding.
Yeah.
And that's the part I can really work on, is how am I inviting him to be my problem, so to speak.
Sure.
Or inviting him to have challenges.
Sure.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah. So have you given some thought to it? The data, the research shows that let's see here. There we go. The individuals rate their organizations at a 4.5, which then the natural next question is, where did they rate themselves? They took similar 10 questions. Did they rate themselves more aware, more collaborative, more accountable, more innovative, more engaging? Or did they say, no, I really think my organization is much more aware, much more collaborative than I could ever be? So just think about that for a second. Where would you rate yourself on this continuum? Where do you think others rated themselves on this continuum? And the research shows, drumroll, that probably to not many people's surprise, individuals rated themselves higher on this continuum than they rated their organizations. And that's what we're going to be spending some time around right now. And clearly almost 50% higher, right? And so what does this mean? So going all the way back to where I kind of started, the self-deception gap, the problem of not knowing and resisting the possibility that I'm a problem, right? We start to believe the lies that we tell ourselves. That's the self-deception gap, right? So the opportunity really comes from moving. How do we smash that self-deception gap? How do we get those numbers closer to each other? And then start moving that 4.5 to 5.5. What does that look like? What can we do at a 6.5 for the organization that we couldn't do at a 4.5? What can we do at a 7.5? Do we actually need all those resources that we are complaining about that we're not getting? Because now that we're collaborating better, there's a higher degree of accountability, innovation is up, awareness is up, right? So if we take a look at this, and Matt, maybe we should play around with this for a second. Let's say you and I both report to Annie, which to a degree that's true. Matt and I, and maybe we have Barbara and John and Steve and some other folks all report to Annie. And Annie says, hey team, we are going in this direction right now, and we actually need to start going in this direction. What happens? So when we're talking about an office initiative, when we're talking about a bit of change management, how does the self-deception gap play into that? Let's play around with this. Because when I hear this, right, when Annie comes and she sends out the email, hey, we're going in this direction, we need to go in this direction. Well, if I see myself as a 6.6, I'm basically saying all of my colleagues are a 4.5. So in my head, I'm sitting there thinking, I know who needs to change, and it's Matt. And the second that Matt starts to change and get better, then I'll consider changing as well, right? And
yeah, why should you, right? If
right.
I'm the worst person in the room, why should you even begin working on it until I brought myself up to the Bryan standard?
That's right. And here's the twisted thing, Matt. The self-deception gap, we're all self-deceived to a degree. So Matt Sivacek is thinking the same thing. He's sitting there thinking, oh, yeah, I remember that meeting that Annie and we had a one-on-one last week. I know where she's going with this. She's referring to Bryan and to Bryan. And she's referring to Steve. And so as soon as Bryan starts changing, as soon as his team starts getting a little bit better, then I'll get motivated to start changing. That simple explanation is why change management is so difficult. We just summed it up, Matt, in about 2 minutes of why change management is so hard. It's through the lens of self-deception. None of us feel like we need to change. We could pull the strings on awareness, accountability, collaboration. We could spend time around this, because if I'm more accountable than everyone else, well, I need you to step up, Matt. I need you to step up and be more accountable before I can be more accountable, right? That's where the self-deception gap plays a role in just about all of our organizational challenges and problems.
What if Annie just puts a system, a process, or a policy in place that'll force us to be more outward?
Yeah. For how long, right? How long would that work? So if we're talking about the behavioral solution to something, yeah, it may work. Look, there's behavioral solutions to a lot of this stuff of like, hey, it is now a part of the policy that we are going to be operating in this way. And it might work for a little while. And it maybe a month, especially Annie is extremely charismatic and everyone likes her. So look, we might all get behind Annie for a little while, but over time, if we're not careful, if we're not addressing it at a deeper level, it will eventually, at least in my experience, Matt, it will start slinging back, going back to the old way of doing business.
Well, maybe that's because if I'm a 6.6, obviously, and you're the 4 point, well, you're probably the 4. I mean, then if she puts in a policy to try to make me more outward, then I think I would feel like I'm being punished for your 4-ness.
Sure.
And that's not right. So now I'm just going to become more frustrated with you guys. Sure. I don't know. Yeah. I guess basically, I think forcing somebody, Peter Senge said this very well. People don't mind change, or they're not very resistant to change. They're resistant to being changed. So the first step is what you're telling me is I have to see it. And just for me, the only way I've been able to do this at all is just assume that I'm inward. I have to start there, because if I don't assume I'm inward, then the chance of me being inward goes up astronomically.
And Matt,
at least I have a chance.
Yeah, and look, let's be clear with what you're saying. Just because we're inward doesn't mean we're the worst person in the world. It's just that we're not seeing the situation as clearly as we need to be. You know, we're seeing it through, in a dark room. I often give the example. The inward mindset's like walking into your workspace and the lights are off and you're stubbing your toe and you're bumping into things because you literally cannot see what's going on until you turn the lights on and you can actually see the situation for what it really is. Now I can maneuver in the correct ways, right? And so,
Okay.
it's just seeing outward mindset is really seeing reality. It's seeing clearly what's going on.
Yeah, I see Trish made a statement too that was nice. The other challenge here is with people leading any program of change, but even especially programs that deal with how our subconscious or our mindsets work, is we don't want to be those early adopters, right? We want to see how it works for others first.
Sure.
So I want to see Bryan, first I justify that Bryan is the problem. Now I want to see how it works on Bryan, because if it doesn't work on Bryan, then I obviously don't need any work.
Sure.
Yeah, I can see where I've done that actually not with Bryan, but with people.
So Matt, I guess kind of getting back to this real quick, that's the challenge, right? What can we do about this? Again, we talked about the opportunity. The opportunity is, what does it look like to move our organization first? Smash these numbers, we got to get those closer. And then how do we collectively get we move to more on the outward side, the 10 side. So we do that through building self-awareness, a high level of self-awareness, and really getting clear on what self-deception is and how can we help with that. The second thing is to become mindset change experts, right? And how do we do that? We do that through tools, understanding these principles and a high level of these tools. So in one of our workshops, Matt, we have, it's called Outward Leadership. It's a one-day workshop, but we deal with these situations on the right-hand side of everyone's screen. There's 30 situations there. Won't get into all of them, but just reading them off: groups in conflict, poor alignment, someone is trying to do everything, someone is not doing enough, meeting with contentious issues. These are all situations that a leader probably faces on a daily basis, if not definitely a weekly basis, that they are dealing with. And here is a bit of a playbook. And on the left-hand side of the screen are the tools, a list of the tools. In any one of those situations on the right, there can be anywhere from 4 to 8 different tools that we can help utilize to help solve some of those problems. And the thing that I love most about the Arbinger tools is that they're not tricks, they're not tips, they're not leadership hacks that are going to get a short-term possibly result. These are sustainable things because we're addressing at that mindset level, right? So I'm addressing go ahead. Sorry.
I just reading through these, the two that jump out to me, because I've had to deal with it, is at the bottom of the left page, termination conversation, and the bottom of the right page, letting somebody go, obviously, is a situation. And those are both, how do you do that from an outward perspective? I mean, you're having to fire somebody. That seems like that's can you just hit that one just for half a second?
Yeah, for sure. No one ever takes, I don't think, it's not something that we look forward to doing, is firing someone, but we can fire a person who has needs, objectives, challenges, and is struggling at work. We can fire that person, or we can fire an object, right? We can fire someone, with any of the categories that we've been kind of talking about, the labeling, we can fire them, an object, or we can fire a person, and it feels different on the receiving end, and it feels different delivering those that news or whatever that conversation looks like. It feels different. There's what I like to think of, there's just a more effective way firing a person rather than firing an object.
Okay, thanks, because I think that the dark side of some of this stuff is the scariest for me about protecting myself. My initial inclination is, if I go in to have a termination conversation with somebody, and I don't put up my walls of justifying in all this. And again, that's the hard part. Justifying the termination is different than objectifying the person while I'm terminating them.
That's right, Matt. That's right.
And that's what's so hard, because I'm so used to the what appears to be easiest, which is to just turn him into an object so they now can't hurt me. But when I'm outward, a person doesn't have any more power really to hurt me.
Yeah.
They're just a human to me, which means they do matter. And so now I can avoid hurting them in the process.
Yeah. I think that's fair. And look, these tools, we jumped straight to the termination, into the life cycle or the employment cycle, right?
Yeah, sorry.
These tools are everywhere from onboarding. How do we onboard in the correct way to give people give them an understanding of what our culture is, right? And we can even start even before onboarding in the interview process, and starting to address some of these things in the interview process. We have tools in here that help assess, someone and a candidate's inward mindset or outward mindset. When we ask specific questions, now we're kind of tuning into, are they blaming others? Is there a sense of accountability? So we can kind of help with the interview process. Then the onboarding, what does that look like? Hey, they're coming on board now, and we need to help them understand that what we value in this company, in this organization, is their impact on others. So we'll give them a list of tools. Hey, you go out for your first 2 weeks, you're going to go out, you're going to understand your role in this organization and how you impact these people. And then that moves forward to the middle of the employment cycle. And then hopefully, Matt, but it happens, of course, and we're going to get to that termination side. But there's a lot of tools in place that would help us way before we have to get to that. But of course, going all the way back to where we started with this, we can fire an object or we can fire a person.
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's almost like, it almost feels like, well, we know, right, that most people leave their organization or even have a bad attitude in an organization in their own mind because of their leadership, their boss, and the people there. And if people can transition to a mindset, but like, it'd be perfect if everybody did, got it. But if our bosses did have an outward mindset, I think that would set conditions for people that are babies in this, if you will, to begin having that outward mindset, that invitation. But it creates an environment that allows people the freedom to grow like that. And I don't ever want to make it chicken or the egg. You have to have one or the other. But as long as one goes right, then we get a chance to get to the other.
Yeah.
And so the termination conversation will likely never have to occur. But there's unforeseen situations, company downsizings, things like that as well.
Sure. Look, yeah. Well, I feel like the other thing you're touching on there, Matt, is the mindset is contagious. It absolutely, in my experience, it is extremely contagious. An inward mindset, when I feel objectified, well, if no one's seeing me as a person, well, then I have to see myself, right? And I'm going to I have to look out for number one, right? Versus an outward mindset, that is a very contagious place to be as well. Once people start understanding the impact, it invites them to understand their impact. And if I'm a leader at the top of the organization, I'm really seeing my people and their needs, objectives, challenges, and understanding that at that level, it's inviting them to see their reports, needs, objectives, and challenges, and get curious with them. It is a very, very contagious place. And so, Matt, when we go in and work with organizations, and we tend to, our best practice is that we start at the top. We start at the very top and work our way down, because people need to be seen, and then they are more invited. What has Matt been going through? Man, it's a major change. Hey, Matt, what's going on? And then it's more of an invitation to get access to this material.
It makes sense. I mean, again, growing up in the world and being, again, indoctrinated to our world, I tend to look at people who can hurt me first or help me, right? And so if the seniors are becoming outward, that creates a substantial safe space for everybody below them. Whereas if I'm the subordinate and I become outward, yes, I'm going to be better and more functional. And yes, it can be contagious. And yes, a senior that's looking might actually go that way. But that's the tough way to go.
Yeah.
Just because of humans and in human nature, not because we're bad, just because we're taught to take care of ourselves. Somebody's got to.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, I'll tell a quick story here. I'm in baseball season, so I got two boys, and I'm managing both baseball seasons. At the beginning of the season comes out, and of course the league does a call out. Hey, we need as many people as we can to get the fields ready. And I was like, the perfect justification is I'm already doing a lot. I'm already taking on two teams. Surely someone else only has one team that they can go help, right? And the email kept going out. Email kept going out. Hey, could really use some help. And I was like, fine. I have a Sunday morning. I'll go help. And I went up there, and his name's Cliff. And I met Cliff for the first time. And Cliff is one of those guys. It is hard not to root for him. By 30 in my head, right? I'm showing up like, all right, I'm going to give 30 minutes. As I start to talk to Cliff and get to know Cliff, me and Cliff hung out for the rest of the day, and we were so productive. Cliff was a guy that you root for. That guy he was off the charts outward. I just wanted to be around him all day. It was fantastic. He was my invitation to clear out, my busy schedule, all the justification that I had going into that situation. Cliff was my guy. He helped me, and we had an awesome time and got a ton done. But that's the engagement. That's when we show up to work. That's what we're looking to do. Be seen, see others. That's that involvement, that cooperation and collaboration, the high level of accountability that we all strive for as a culture in our organization.
It hits me too. You're talking about organizations, which are extremely important, right? And yes, our work's important, but this has got to be really hard in the house because we've got all that backstory, all those times I disappointed to help, my family be justified, and all those times I've been disappointed to help me justify. I just see these dueling banjos like going in a circle sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Look, we have images of ourselves, right? I put in 8 to 12 hours a day. I don't have to do that stuff, right? All of a sudden I start to objectify my wife, my kids. I just need an hour. I just need to sit down. I just need to relax. Are we really seeing others and understanding how how we are impacting others ultimately, Matt, right? How are we showing up?
Trish just asked a great question. How does outward mindset balance out self-care?
Yeah.
Because the first thing I know when I went through this, and I talk to people going through it, it feels like if I'm outward, I'm running around doing everything for everybody. Well, and that's the part that doesn't get hit quite as well at times, I think. Remember, if I'm running around sacrificing my needs, objectives, and challenges for everybody else, that means I'm placing them higher than me.
Right.
And so I'm not on equal footing with them. My needs, objectives, and challenges are being disregarded by me. And they matter like other people matter, right? And I think that's the hardest part because, again, we stratify. And so that's for me. I don't know if you have anything to add on that, but that's it. So self-care is part of your needs, objectives, and challenges. And your self-care matters as much as everybody else's self-care.
That's right, Matt. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I could say it any better. I kind of pull this back to this model here, this framework, because the outward mindset, look, I can do self-care from an inward mindset, and I can do self-care with an outward mindset. I can understand the impact my self-care has on others. And there might be a balance there. If I'm if I'm deep into, I don't know, Ironman triathlons, and I have two kids and a wife, Ironman triathlons, it might take 12 hours out of my day. Well, that does have an impact on folks, right? We need to understand the impact that our self-care has on others. Or I could not care. I could absolutely not care. And all that's going to do is cause resistance with everyone around us. But with an outward mindset, yeah, I do have self-care, but I also understand the impact that my self-care has on others, right? Because I need to take into consideration if I left every day from work and I went to the gym for 4 hours and I didn't have dinner, my wife made, possibly cooked dinner, and my boys were waiting for, like, that does have an impact on people. So I think self-care in terms of, are people rooting for me for self-care, or are they resisting my self-care? But ultimately, self-care is extremely important, but we can do it from one of two mindsets.
And kind of something I just heard too is if they're rooting for me or if they're resisting me, that still doesn't answer whether I'm inward or outward, but it should cause the question.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's plenty of times, and that's the hard part in all of this, right? I remember one of Arbinger's term, outwardly nice inward mindset, where, people may be coming to the conclusion that I'm outward and be rooting for me, but not actually see what's going on. That's what's so scary to me in all this. It's what you started with, right? If I'm blind to it, how can I see it?
Right.
And the first point is to question,
Sure.
and my favorite thing about, and I'll let you get to it, is if I question in Arbinger terms being in the box or out of the box, right? So if I'm in the box, I'm inward. If I question whether I'm being inward or not, I'm now really outward.
Yeah, it's the first step, right? Yeah.
But then when I congratulate myself for being outward and how wonderful I am and nobody else is, now I'm inward. And it's just a constant struggle for me now.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Bryan. I'll let you continue.
No, look, Matt, that was the that was the last slide I have. So now we're kind of in the open forum, whatever we kind of want to kick around here. But yeah, I think you had a point there. It'll come back to me. What were there any other questions out there that?
I didn't see any others, at least so far.
I remember what it was, Matt. Just thinking about feedback, right? Just for a second, like we often, kind of going back to, hey, are they rooting for us or are they resisting us? Feedback is all around us at all times, and it's just, are we taking the feedback and justifying it away? Or are we taking the feedback and asking the questions? Gosh, how am I impacting this person? Maybe you have the meeting and you could hear crickets, right? You hear nothing. It's like, well, that's some sort of feedback. Am I making this a safe place where people, and we can ask those questions, Matt, or we can ask, how dare these people? Don't they know to speak up? Don't they know, right? So there's an inward way and an outward way to that we can address people not speaking up, or maybe I've lost control of the room, and there's an inward way of handling that. And an out. Don't you guys know that I have an agenda? It's up to me, So I'm just kind of kicking around some ideas, but feedback is all around us. It's whether or not we take that feedback, justify it away, or we take that feedback and we start asking ourselves questions. Gosh, how am I showing up in this? How am I impacting this, whatever the situation is? Those are the questions. I love where you're getting at right there, right? Because those are some of the red flags that we can toss aside, or we can take those on.
Yeah, I think that's the essential piece, right? It's so hard to be inside my head, especially, but to be inside our own self, because there's so much going on, and it's so easy for me to self-deceive, because my subconscious has far more input and power into the whole system, right? Compared to, but then when I look at you, I can easily discount all of that and come to snap judgment. And so it feels easier to judge Bryan in how he's acting and stratifying than it is to do it to myself. And the truth of the matter is, it's really the opposite. The only person I can actually judge and understand is me, because I'm in here, and I can come close to glimpses of Bryan, and I think they're pretty good. But that's the hard part. I constantly am telling myself it's easier to judge everybody else, because it's really what you see is what you get, even though that's not true. And yet I struggle with myself. Anyway, I basically was getting to the power is all within each of us. And that's ultimately where it is, no matter the situation. And I see we're coming to the end of time. So I definitely want to tell everybody out there that we have LTI does Outward Mindset Online through support of Arbinger, and our next cohort coming up starts May 26th. It's a 10-week program, Monday nights, And it's for graduates of our Changing Focus, Moving from We to Me program that we do for veteran transition. And it's a veteran transition program, but I tell you, if you're in the military at any point, it will help. If you've been out for years, it will help. And no matter what reason you got out for, you're welcome to come to that program. And you can find that on our through our website. You can find the Outward Mindset online through LTI, supported by Arbinger, through the link Annie put up. But what I found to be amazing that goes with this, and I think that's why Bryan and Arbinger joined forces with us, is changing focus, moving from we to me. Kind of sounds a little bit crazy, right? I mean, wait, you're going to make it all about yourself? Well, the military did teach us to not make it about ourselves, and you know, we can argue that our minds kind of got changed, and so getting back to focusing on me is really important. And then what Outward Mindset does is prevents me from turning that into a toxic, my needs matter more than everybody else. So we transition from we to me, get ourselves centered in the civilian world. And then through Outward Mindset, we can reconnect to everybody in a positive and effective manner. So it's the perfect marriage of programs. So I can't recommend both enough. I see we got 2 more comments, making sure. Okay, those are good. Other than that, Bryan, do you have any parting words? And Annie, if you want to jump on and just say something too, that'd be nice.
What I want to say is I want to give time for Bryan to share his parting comments, because I have been listening to the whole conversation. It's always a good refresher, even for somebody who's been through a cohort as a learner and then as a sidekick. Every time I go through the cohort, I think I get a little better at it. And I think that it kind of goes along with what you said, Matt. When you start to question, then you're approaching things from an outward mindset. But when you start to judge yourself, you're getting a little inward. So I hope that I'm getting better with my outward mindset. Thank you so much, Bryan. I want to give you some time to close out, but I want you to have the final word. So I'm gonna say my thank you now. I really appreciate the partnership that LTI has with the Arbinger Institute. We're grateful for that, because it makes a difference for every member of our team and for the people who come through our programs. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Annie, thanks. Matt, thanks. Look, I guess my closing thought is this is a journey. This is not a light switch where we flip the light switch and we're like, all right, I'm outward. That was fun. Never going to be inward again. It is a long journey with roller coasters, as new relationships form, as you move, as jobs, as you transition. There's so many invitations out there to bring you back and go inward, right? It is a long journey, and keeping these principles and tools, my book stays with me right here on my desk, and Outward Mindset Online is a fantastic, way to just continue to see the content, see the videos, and help us, with the challenging situations in our life. So it's an honor. We are so blessed to be partnering with LTI and everything you all are doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And we'll see you all right back here the 4th Tuesday noontime in May. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.